Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is our work session for the month of April. I'd like to recognize the guests tonight. This is our work session. This is the night we discuss motions that will be in next Wednesday's voting meeting. If there's any questions, we will have time for that before and after the reports. Item B, recognition of meetings. 7 to 7:18 was our regular board session last month. Pride promises, we will have people from Wellness Fine Art Festival next Wednesday. Administrative reports. Mr. Sid.
Hey, the month of March, our bus driver meeting with discussion on bus evacuations and the proper procedures, and want to go over that with them before we did them. We did them on March 25th. We're working on our daily repairs as needed, following our routine maintenance schedule and the state inspection on all the things.
Did we discuss with the board the only passenger option that you're looking at?
I think everybody got a picture of that. Did you see?
I think we
There was
changed
an
it.
email.
The first one was the yellow one. First one was the yellow one.
I think they only saw the yellow one. You describe what we're looking at as of last one.
You see a lot of transit vans, what they're called now, which they got the higher roofs or the regular roofs, and just about everybody in transportation is pretty much using transit vans now. They may be yellow, they may not be yellow. There's more probably white ones than that. And they're very decent vehicles. They're not a shuttle vehicle for any type of business out there today. But what that does also is 9 packs where anybody with a regular license can drive that vehicle.
So we were looking at that. We were looking at used prices on that, correct?
We also have new prices.
New prices. Around $85,000.
And less than that.
We were around 60. For the,
Yeah.
the one, low. So,
The yellow one was 85. So the picture you got was 85,000. We are looking at different options for the 9 passenger, and that'll probably reflect in the first draft.
Are the high roofs better for getting in and out, or is there a difference?
I think so. They look a little better also, I think. I was just looking at one the other day in the parking lot, and I said, oh, that's a difference in high roof and low roof. But the low roof is what the green ones are now, and so they'll work. But if it's a high roof's available for the same kind of money, I think that's an option.
I guess you'll enjoy it. You're on the price on the higher roof then?
I don't think it was much
it
different.
wasn't much different.
It
No,
wasn't much difference.
and it was like, I think it was $5,000 between rear wheel and all wheel drive. Not just the top.
I don't think that's an option. Just us.
That's what Joe said.
It's just death trap.
Yeah, because over the last 16 years, because the big green ones, they're rear wheel drives, they got around and on pretty good. You have to be very, very careful.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Senator?
Our water project update, we started work on it this past Monday. They've cut doorways into the coal bins. They've removed the cement. They've been power washing the walls as of right now. And it's amazing. I've never been around a cement cutting chainsaw. And it's not going through like hot butter, but these walls are original.
I think I sent everybody pictures. I don't know if you got them. Well, those walls must be 18, 20 inches thick. I was down there. I've cut a lot of cement. I don't have them guys. I was going to ask them how to do it, but I asked them, I had this chunk of, it must have been 3 foot square. And I said, how are you going to get that out of there? And they said, buckets. So I didn't ask them any more questions.
They're a lot stronger than me. I wasn't gonna play around with them guys.
I was impressed. They did a nice job.
They're doing a great job at this point. They're back today doing some final power washing. Once it's dry, then they'll be painting the walls, and we'll start looking at doing some floor leveling. So I'll keep you abreast as we go forward. The library update, the floors are completed, the furniture arrived on 3/20. All the kitchen equipment is scheduled to come in, the 15th of this month. So, once we get that in, we're doing some final stuff, electrical hookups to the floor. It's coming along pretty well. It's, close to being completed. I think we should have it done for end of April.
Once it is completed, do some type of board reception there before we see what some of our SMO want to do. It's a pretty impressive area right now. I think it's going to be a good 21st century space.
This is the paperwork whenever we approved it. And I look at it, just curious as what we're changing, and why we're changing.
I should have took pictures before and after. I know the difference. It's hindsight.
A lot of your book.
The volleyball system has arrived on 3/27. I contacted the company right before the Easter break, and the quickest they can have anybody here is on the 29th or 30th of this month. So we set up for them 2 days. I've already spoke with Mr. Lake and Mr. Locke, and we're going to secure that gym for 2 days and have the system put in. The other projects going on right now, we've been prepping the baseball fields, softball fields, practices and games in between the rain.
I notice there's a lot of water out there. What are you going to do about all this rain?
Take a sweep out.
Believe it or not, we've had phone calls, Mark, already.
Hence my jest. I'm aware. Or the helicopter. Remember that one? On 19, little bit of Laurel trivia, okay? 1985, we were hosting a playoff game. It's a sophomore, it's a torrential downpour. And we were playing Brentwood. Lo and behold, I didn't know this till years after. Guess who's on the other side? Steve Skirt. It was so bad though, and it's so wet. They actually got John Rush in his helicopter and he was going back and forth. He was trying to blow the water off the field with the helicopter. And it's a true story because Steve remembers it as well as I do. I don't know if you remember, Jim, you'd have been in Sweden. But anyway, a little bit. So if you want to see if the helicopter's still available, that might work too.
I'll get her requisition sent.
Well, we don't have Mohawk's money, Mr. Lane, or we just turf the shit up.
We're gonna outlaw turf here next.
You see where they're going?
Yeah,
The professional athletes are trying to get to go back to grass.
I fully agree. Steelers and Penn State play on grass. What more do you need to know?
That's it. And the Spartans and the Laurel Spartans.
Yeah, that's smart.
So we're in line with the Nittany Lions.
Well, didn't they say we can't play playoff games anymore? Or is it,
So,
But it's okay to say the Whitfield champion.
oh, you read my mind. And that's what I told the WPL numbers too. When a couple years back when they took our home game away and our home game became at Shenango, I said, so let me get this straight. If it rains the week of the WPL championships, you're moving those games from Acrashore to a turf field, correct? No, we're not. Hypocrites. Even called another Mohawk legend, a good friend of mine. I do consider Mr. Seltzer a good friend. He stuck to the party line as well. Anyway, sorry, and I got us.
Okay. We've been also painting lines for baseball and track. Track actually had the first home meet yesterday. They got through. It was tough for the field events. Still a lot of water out there. We've been removing the theater arts equipment after the play. Mr. Rogers on a time frame to get it sent back, and we've just been doing some replacement of bulbs, even in the auditorium before the play and throughout the school.
Jen, do you have this year's submission from Joe and Ed about the 5-year plans? Or do they have it individually? Not that you need that right now. But I think for our new board members, part of what we do here is fill ask questions. So I think it's pertinent to look at our short-term and long-term planning. So if we can push out the 5-year plan, particularly from Joe and Ed, because that would not only cover transportation, building and grounds, but also the cafeteria, and just let people know what we're looking at. The projects of $10,000.
We talk lights, but we still use them, these are still fluorescent. Their disposal cost. Is there a disposal cost to get rid of bulbs?
Not at this point yet. We're not doing mass quantities when we dispose of them. We're just doing one or two and then changing fixtures out. Some year, it was on our 5-year plan to do a hall or wing, going all to individuals. We've had, we've had the gyms completed and we've done the outside of the buildings and the parking lots. That was our first stage, and our next couple years would be the buildings.
Any other questions of, Mr. Newman? Mrs. Bell?
I provided our school-wide data from the elementary. And we had a significant increase in behavioral referrals. So Dan has been busy and Nicole at the elementary. Looking at the data, it's because of a couple kids. We've had some nice weather. And unstructured times down there has caused an influx. And it's just a couple of kids, across the grade span. So we talked about interventions, like what we were going to do for that, and had that discussion this month. Cray audit, anytime that you have students in an alternative education placement, the state wants to monitor you. They go over file reviews. They question, why do you have students in these outside placements, or what are you doing to bring them back in? So they went through a thorough file review for our students at Cray. And we completed that audit with 100% compliance. A special ed plan, I had said last month you guys were going to have that to review and vote on this month. You should have that in your packet. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that. It's due every 3 years, and it's supposed to be out there for the public to review for 28 days before we submit it to the state. Again, if there's any questions in reading that, please just reach out and let me know. Spirit Week, this is Autism Awareness Week. So if everyone wants to wear blue this week to support autism, that's April 2nd through the 5th. They're having a Spirit Week at the high school to support autism awareness. Middle school took a bocce team to Shenango on March 26th for a tournament, and they got 2nd place. So congrats to our middle school bocce team. That's all I have.
Is there any questions for Mrs. Bell? I did have a question. I don't know if you can answer. I was looking through this thing that Len gave us last month, and on mental health issues at the top.
Mhm.
I mean, almost 79%. Is that? I mean, how much higher is that than we've been in? And I don't know that this is us.
No,
but
that's
this
for the
is-
whole state. So
Right.
as far as mental health issues,
I mean, where did this all get? I mean, has this been COVID or
Cell phones.
So I think that when COVID came about, it was that students were at home with their parents more. And there, I think, became a rise in there's something wrong because they were with them more. I think in school districts, especially our district, we're very well equipped for mental health. We have Angelus in place. We have Jessica in place. There's lots of supports that we have for students. So I don't think that that's applicable to our district.
so beyond the spot, some clarification, beyond what our school personnel are doing, as far as referrals to Angelus, do you have any idea how many are being seen in the elementary and in the high school?
I do have that spreadsheet, but I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I don't want you to give any names because they're not pretty names, but if you could, email me just some numbers, elementary, high school, because when we say Angelus, right, that's beyond the capability of our counseling services and our pupil personnel department. These are trained, licensed mental health professionals. Many of you may know Lori Kroll. We've had Lori associated with us for years, but under one of the safety grants, we're able to subscribe to and have a contract for additional mental health services here in the school through Angelus. As a matter of fact, our one worker owns that property right on the corner of our lot here, and they're trying to build a new house. So
And that's just one little tiny piece. Like we also are contracted with Human Service Center. There's a school-based, he's a male that comes in and does school-based counseling as well. And then the wellness program is on top of Angelus. There's been a waiting list to get into Angelus now for quite some time. So we have been, referring to other means to
I
get
think that'd be
students into
very helpful
counseling.
as far as Steve's list, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Just no names, just, what type of numbers and grade levels are seen.
But we have like a call system in place, and then I have that ticket system in place. And if anyone has any concerns, they're supposed to submit that. I don't even put that on my board size anymore because we've gotten one ticket in the last 3 months for social emotional issues that we need to address. So I don't want to say that, but I think that we're reaching all of the kids that we're aware of to be reaching.
It was just a little alarming. I mean, I know that this is just our school, but I mean, if the young people are having this much issues, it doesn't get any better.
Well, think about the topics in the world too. Like we're dealing with the transgenders and, struggling with social emotional, like with identity. So that's not necessarily applicable as much in our area, but different areas like bigger cities. I think there is a huge influx of issues like that.
Not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but 75% of all television advertising is big pharma. If nobody's sick, then nobody needs a script. And then I would also say, let's say when you were growing up, maybe you had a situation where you were anxious, or you were nervous, or you had a degree of tragedy in your life. You experienced some grief. I think all of those are normal experiences relative to social emotional development. And my concern is if we're telling young people that not only do they have anxiety, but they have anxiety relative to the need of a prescription medication. My concern is how far are we going with that? And why aren't we looking at things such as, like, for example, one of the reasons why we instituted a middle school wasn't to improve ELA math or science, but was to give our middle school faculty an opportunity to address the adolescent issues of that age group. And we do a lot of team building activities. We do a lot of positive activities with those groups because young people need to learn these coping skills to be successful adults, to your point. You think 8th grade is tough, don't graduate.
Okay. I think like your report says there's one incident among 8 kids. Is it among
Yes.
8 kids? So
Mhm.
you have a small,
Right.
so how many, I'm gonna just throw it out. I think, what do you have, like 300 in the elementary school?
No, we have
Around 500.
Oh, so new percent, that's a very small percentage.
Exactly, of the issues.
of issues.
And an average for us at the elementary in a month is 8 to 9 office referrals. So that's why when I say 31, that is significant compared to every month
is,
we
but it's-
average like 8
It's
to
still
11.
8 or
It's
9.
still, yes.
It's still 8 or 9.
So one of the things we look at it on the admin meetings relative to the school-wide information is, who is making more than one offense, right? Because that's also a way to identify. Let's say, so you have 8 kids committing an average of 4 referrals each, around 1 a week, okay? Is there something going on in their lives relative to that?
And that's what we talk about every month, like when
Right.
we go over this data. Who are these kids? What do we have in place for them? And
The admin team knows the name of that little young homeless boy who we got, who came in with some severe behaviors. And he's navigating our elementary school. He's doing much better, but I guarantee he's one of those 31 referrals. He's got a little mouth on him. Sometimes he catches our little Spartans a little surprised. Some of those things that can come out of his mouth.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lynn.
I think Mr. Swerve is gonna go because we're gonna do data and he's starting elementary work up, I think so.
So you guys each have a handout. That's what you still have one. So we want to just go over our benchmarks as we get here close to the end of the year and get close to state testing. So the first page here is K-2. K-2 is a little different than 3 to 6 because there's not state testing in K-2. So we do 3 benchmark. We do one early fall, one mid-year, and then one in May. So that's why you're only seeing benchmark 1 versus benchmark 2 for this one. You'll see when we get to the PSSAs and Keystones, you'll see benchmark 1 versus benchmark 3, because we take that third benchmark about 6 to 8 weeks out from the PSSAs to get that final push. So when we're looking at this data, we'll start the very first line. So that's K literacy. So the 3 columns, high risk, moderate risk, and low risk, are basically what you mean. High risk kids are ones that have some severe deficits that we have to address through interventions. Moderate risk means they have a couple here and there. Low risk means they're on track and they're doing well. So when you look fall to winter, you want to see those high risk numbers go down and you want to see the low risk numbers go up. And as you can see, that's happening across the boards for the literacy. And looking at numeracy is now becoming one of our strengths, not only at the elementary level, but even pushing up into the high school level. So, you're looking like at mid-year, if you look at K numeracy, we had 80% of our kids at low risk. So that means they're on track and they're doing well. And that was midway through the year. So hopefully by the end of the year, we can get everybody out of that high risk and moderate risk column. Looking at first grade started the year off. We had quite a few kids at the high risk category, but when you look at winter for literacy, that went from 41% all the way down to 16. So there was a huge jump of kids we pushed out of that low risk and moving them up the ladder all the way up to the low. Numeracy, again, first grade, that's another strength of ours. 84% of our kids at mid-year were at low risk. And then looking at second grade, same type of pattern there. And you can see as the years go up, even the fall testing, our high-risk kids are very low. So that tells me that our programming is working, because if kids come to us in kindergarten, they've never seen us before. So it's a blank slate. So we're trying to prep them, get them ready, get them in our programming. And as the years go up, we're seeing less of those kids falling in that high-risk category. So what we do for that, again, K-2, we're targeted title. So we do title assistance K-2. And through this benchmark testing, we'll find out the kids who are at the high risk, and then look at their subtests, and we just attack those deficits. And once a kid reaches their goal in that deficit 3 weeks in a row through the progress monitoring, they'll either move into the next group up or they'll exit out of the program. And then we'll do our last testing in May, and we use that. Our K-1 kids then will qualify them so that we can start title service at the beginning of the year, and then we'll test our K kids as they come. Any questions on K-2? All right, so inside of that page, on the inside cover of that, we start to get into our all the way up through 8th grade and the Keystones. And again, like I said, the difference between this benchmark and the last one is we do one early fall, we do one mid-year, and then we do another one about 6 to 8 weeks out. So we have all of our benchmark testing done. So again, if you're looking at 3rd grade, now this 3rd grade group, this is a group we've been tracking since COVID. We knew this was a target group. We knew this group struggled. They had probably the biggest gaps and deficits just throughout the whole experience there, just where they were at in their learning process when that hit and shut down. So we've been putting a lot of things in place, but you can see a huge jump there. Even if you just look at the ELA from the fall to spring, we went from 8.7 all the way up to almost 50% kids were proficient or advanced. We also noticed through our data meetings, there was a group of kids that had some very similar skill deficits. So through our IST teacher, we set up some skill groups with that grade level and started to attack them because we knew they needed a little extra help. So I think that was part of the reason why we had such good growth there in that area. Math, again, starting off with only 2.4% proficient advanced all the way up to 44. And then something else to point out, if you go all the way back and look at the below basic, we had 80% of our kids at that level to start the year off. And again, you're testing kids on what they should know by the end of the school year. So you don't expect them to know it all at this point. But we dropped that below basic percentage significantly down to 36. And then moving into 4th grade. Now, 4th grade, of course, as you know, this year we have ELA, math, and science. And then next year, the science test will move to 5th grade. But again, same type of growth. We actually started the year off a little bit higher with that group at 47% proficient advanced for ELA, and they moved up to 64. Math started off at 7.4, jumped all the way up to 64. That's some huge growth there. And science has always been a strength there. We've been pretty solid around the 90s. We went from 91% proficient advanced all the way up to almost 97. And we've in past years, had 0 kids at the below basic level, not only in science, but even other subject areas. So we're proud of that. We're making good growth. One of the questions we always get, how we're at we're right on track with where we were last year. There's a few grade levels that may be a little bit lower, but we're making the same progress, and we always try to track to see are we growing at the rate we did the prior year. So, and then I'll let Nicole pick up with 5th grade.
So just as Mr. Swervely was explaining, if you look, we have the same pattern that we saw in 3rd and 4th grade with 5th grade. So look, if you look at our ELA, our proficient advanced increased by 11.9%. We went from a 49.2 at the beginning of the school year to now at a 61.1%. One thing I do want to point out, because I was looking at the below basic and I saw that we had an increase of a 2.3 from the beginning to now. And so I was kind of curious as to what happened. So what's nice with the reports is you can really drill down and look at the individual student. I found out that that's a student that moved into our district about a month ago. So that would make sense. So a student could be a 2 to 3% difference here. Math, we had a very nice growth in 5th grade math. We were predicted at 7.6 at the beginning of the school year, when we had a 17.3% increase to a 24.9%. And if you look across the board, as the other ones go down, proficient and advanced move up. ELA 6, this was always a little bit of a challenge one that's that we see with our test, but I see that we have about a 10% increase here. From a 25.6 to a 35.5. And the 6th grade math, I mean, we had a 52.2% increase for proficient and advanced. And rightfully so, if we look down at the below basic, we had a decrease of 43%.
One thing that impresses me about Laurel students is their effort. Day in, day out. When they get to be in the middle school, we talk about adolescence, and they take a benchmark like this, and there isn't a grade tied to it, it becomes less motivation for them. But looking at the data, they've done what they needed to do. I mean, there's one anomaly on there, and that's 7th grade ELA. We started off with a bang right out of the block. And, I think 6th grade last year, that was a pretty decent grade. So they're coming to us pretty strong. But it was only a difference of 2 students, really, in that last call. So it's not a major deal. But, obviously we had our data meetings. We talked about a couple things. 1, what's the content that's been taught? 2, what you still have to teach before the test in April. And 3, have you spiraled back and got anything from September that you taught a couple months ago? We give the benchmark similar to what Dan and Nicole had said. We give them 3 times. The one that I always want to point out, and it's like this across the state, I really wish there was an answer for it, but it's 8th grade math. It's amazing how you have 8th graders who are in algebra, which is an advanced math for 8th graders, that pass an algebra keystone. But when it comes time to take the general math PSSA, those numbers don't jive. And the state average in 8th grade PSA math is in the 20%. So if you're looking at that, and we came out of the gate in 8th grade math at 5.2% proficiency, and the last benchmark was 26. That's a red flag, and I'm not making any excuses, but it's a red flag across the state. I really wish there was a better answer for that. If we end up, according to PBAS, which projects student proficiency, right now we're projected to be around 35% proficient in 8th grade math. It's amazing. Like I said, no matter who you talk to, school district, it's very weird that you have 60, 70, 80% of those 8th graders passing an algebra keystone, but they struggle on that 8th grade math test.
Has this changed since we got into Common Core math?
Yes, that's when it did change. Mm-hmm. And you would think, that's a great question, Mr. Redfoot. You would think that by the time, I can't remember what year that would have been, that might be our current 8th graders.
17, 18 was.
Yeah, so that might be a current 8th grade. And, that always goes down to when we started that in the elementary. And obviously that would be a phase in for that grade level. That might be the current cohort if we think about it around that time. But they've had that.
So they haven't revised the keystone yet, though. I mean, none of the keystones have been touched for about 12, 13 years.
Right.
So that's a factor.
The keystones are still old
Yep.
format.
Correct.
Yep.
Lance will tell you as a former math teacher, the 8th grade PSSA's Common Core but the Keystone algebra is not.
Well, that was- I mean, compare it apples to oranges.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
But algebra is its own language, so it'd
Yeah.
be almost
Yeah.
impossible to infuse sticks and circles and squiggly marks into algebra.
You know, if our eighth grade math team ever cracks 40, we're not gonna use district funds. I'll take them to start.
But at the end of the day, I'm assuming at the end of the day, you guys are just looking at the P-BOSS anyhow for your,
For projections?
yes.
Yes, that's what, yeah.
That's what I mean. So as you know, so if you have, your eighth grade teacher that, on paper, JQ taxpayers like, wow, this teacher had 30% of their kids be proficient. We're paying them a salary, but then you look at the P-BOSS, and
That's
they
what
want
it's
to
saying.
project it 25%,
Correct.
and they're like getting blue triangle. You're like,
Yep.
That's actually pretty legit. So.
Yeah, what Lance is talking about is the growth of the year. PBAS is a site that it gives you not only projections on how students will do on certain tests, including AP tests, but also did you grow that student or at least maintain them a full year's growth in that classroom? And that's what they get. The ELA and math teachers get a score on their evaluation based on PBAS growth. So that's what we look at.
This will be the renewal of
Correct.
3 years.
Because you have to have 3 years of data. The 1 year we didn't take the test 4 years ago with COVID. So now this is the 3rd year again for that PBAS growth.
Next fall, we'll be able to have tangible evidence for it, which you said that we might be in the mid-30s. Are we blue in growth? Would be phenomenal. Are we green in growth? Yellow versus red.
I think at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's relevant. The raw scores mean nothing.
So there's our 7 and 8. Obviously, 7th grade is ELA and math. 8th grade is ELA, math, and science. And then there's our Keystone, which are important for the students for their graduation requirement. Everything on there looks the way it's supposed to go. The one thing that we started here, and I think I mentioned it in last month in my report, we had a 30-day plan that we came out of our data team meetings with 7th and 8th grade. We've been actually pulling some 7th and 8th graders out of morning breakfast and getting some extra help there. Those kids received a coffee cart ticket. There's a little incentive if they've been participating every day. Those types of things to get them going. And then we'll give the PSA in April and then the Keystones in May. We're doing something similar with the Keystone kids as well. It's a little bit more difficult with the older kids because they might drive or come with a sibling and they're not here. Most of the 7th, 8th graders ride the bus. They're here and they're stuck here at 7:45. So we've been pulling them for that half an hour. So any questions about the data? I do have one other comment. I just want to say, first time go around, I think Mr. Ritchell had his 2 cents. Last week's exit interviews, and Sherry was there too. I thought it went really well. For the first year, expectations were there. The kids, once again, performed. Mr. Holzhauser did a great job of preparing them in 12th grade government class. Everybody was dressed for success, presented. Mr. Holzhauser and I went through. There wasn't anybody with any red flags. Everybody made it through. Everybody showed up. He's going to go over a bulleted list of suggestions and recommendations that the panelists gave. And then I sent out a survey to the elementary and high school staff that Mr. Holzhauser and I will go through. And if we need to redefine or make it even better for next year, we'll do that. So it was a great experience.
Choose some timely information. I mean, it's on the school calendar. There's activity days and it's half days. So please feel free to come and see the product that these teachers are creating.
The only comment I had is I was talking to one of the kids that had taken one of the buses, and he was telling me about, a lot of the kids were really freaking out about the public speaking part. I hope, when we work with the ones coming, this was the first group to come through. Maybe before the next group comes up, they need to have a little bit of experience.
That's always been I'll use the word dilemma. That might not be the right word. We're so concentrated on this and presentations sometimes go to the wayside. We take the literature Keystone in 10th grade and we prepare in 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th. And then we try to hit a lot of those softer skills in English class in 11th and 12th grade. But sometimes this becomes too important to what the real world is.
And it's not everybody likes talking in public,
Yeah.
but I don't know how you get over that.
Mr. Holzhauser did have a lot of the students practice in his class, but once again, they're practicing in front of their peers. They don't like doing that either. So,
No, it was my son.
He was totally fine. I think he could have honestly cared less about having to do it.
It's the weather every Friday.
I mean, he does the job. But I know he had said one of his friends was legit like dry heaving, complete and utter wreck about it. Some of the girls were like a panicked mess. I said, well, they might need to do a little bit of that more than,
Well, and again, let's go back to what we said 15 minutes ago.
well,
A
they
little
were
bit of that
locked away
is-
too for how long,
it's healthy,
you know?
right?
Yeah.
A little bit of that anxiety, a little bit of that butterflies in your stomach isn't too bad.
It was funny though, because he literally, like, he sent me a picture, had his collar popped, like, he could have cared less about doing it. And then he's talking about his friend dry heaving. I'm like, oh my God. You guys need to get out more.
Terry, that would be nice to add a speech class.
Some schools had that went away, and some people have brought it back, yeah.
And then when you go to college, it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Graduate.
I didn't know.
And then, you know, the fear of public speaking is greater than that fear of death. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Like,
it
even
is.
if they did something like more often, that wasn't maybe 3 minutes, but just something to get them used to that. Cause yeah, there were some terrified.
Oh,
I don't know why, but yeah.
Panels were only like 4 people, right?
Three.
Three,
Okay, there
yeah.
was like
I think it was because there was teachers there, because they do a lot of presentations in the classrooms in front of the teacher, their teacher and their peer. So I think that added an element. But I will tell you, as soon as they were done, the girls, they were having a great time in the hallway. They were taking selfies, they were taking pictures, they were celebrating.
Sherry,
I was just wondering if there would be a backup for it, because I know back now when I graduated in 2000, there was a lot of kids that didn't want to graduate. They didn't want to do that. So I think they ended up with some kind of alternative.
well, what we said in this case being the first year, if we saw anybody that did struggle, then we were gonna make it in a smaller, environment, maybe with just Mr. Pertow, myself, Mr. Holzhauser, give them obviously a second chance, something like that. So, but we went through the rubrics and wasn't anybody that needed that, so.
The kids I sat in were amazing. Absolutely. I was embarrassed of my life. They were just amazing.
Good.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee, Dr. Lee. Or, no.
You're right, Dr. Lee.
All right. I'll be really quick, even though I have a lot of stuff written on here. Well, we just had kindergarten registration. I really wanted to just speak to the Alma side of that, really give Miss Nicholson or Mrs. Nicholson a compliment in regards to work on the back end to make certain that we have what we need. Our data should be much cleaner moving forward in regards to some of our newer students. And that's something that we always have to backtrack and you go back and fix. So just want to let you know, that's one of the things that happened. A segue into that Alma Start, where you're refining that process. Mr. Ketzel, I know that you were excited about some of the online options, and we're going to tighten that up even more and make it a little bit better. Just a little bit about the assessment season. We're in it. Letters will be going home, trainings and so forth. But one of the things I did was create a resource hub for both our parents and teachers. So basically all this information is out there, but it's everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. This is a one-stop shop that has just about everything you could possibly need in regards to schedules, policies, support for, teachers and through the administration. So if they get stuck, they could go right there. There's a simple link right on the website. So it's just something that we've done to try to make it a little bit easier, cleaner for them. So the other thing I wanted to show you real quick is our structured literacy course that we are going to be providing in-house PD. This is Columbus and I worked on this, and I'm not going to go through and show you everything, but I know she spoke to it a little bit, and it's not showing. Oh, shared the wrong tab. Sorry. But basically we put different items in here in regards to a podcast, resources to take us through the structured literacy and the science behind reading. One thing I do want to point out is we tried to model what we're asking our staff to do. and we use big ideas, essential questions, etc. So we're following exactly what we're asking them to do when they're writing curriculum. So I just wanted to point it out. Don't want to go over it, but I wanted you to let you know that it's something we've been working on and where we're at, and it will be. I actually am very proud of it. I think we did a nice job. Not to
Tyler, part one is podcast solar story. Go to part two. There you go. Part two, introduction to structured literacy. And then part three starts into the special.
Yep.
Right. So there's different ones because LA needs to do it. Reading specialist needs to do it. Special ed needs to do it. I mean, am I leaving anybody out?
Anyone that would be ESL.
ESL.
Any
So,
K-12.
It's differentiated as it goes. So you start with a big picture, then splinter it out to the individual certification. So very proud of what Dr. Lee and Ms. Columbus are doing relative to that. What it will look like is we will have it on our professional development agendas. And if they get it done ahead of time, they get it done ahead of time. They can work on something else. So that's how it'll be. It'll be at their own pace. We have to do 10 hours over 3 years. We'll be doing 5 2-hour sessions.
I'm moving right along. Just want to speak real quick because I'll speak more to this next month. But I've been attending the Artificial Intelligence Summits at MIU4. The trainer that's been there is he actually comes from the University of Penn, and he is pretty much an expert in regards to AI and education, or one of the experts that are out there because it's so new. Lots of stuff. I'm actually in the process of, I'm going to create a hub regards with AI. And I see her. Mrs. Jones has been doing a lot with artificial intelligence. We've been working together a little bit. Want to really build some capacity within the district in regards to providing layers of support for our teachers in regards not only just artificial intelligence, but technology integration in instructional technology. So that's something we're going to work with the principals. Like I spoke with Mr. Rich about. We definitely want to put some things in place to provide layers of sustained support and professional development. Camera project, we're still swapping them out all over the place. Do want to point out the field house, right? Field house is actually up and moving and operating. Yesterday I was watching it. We saw a truck driving on the track. I called Mr. Novad and like, are we supposed to have him go on the track? And he's like, no. So we ran out, we caught him. So they're working and he beat.
But driving on the track,
The scorekeeper.
scorekeeper for the track.
Oh yeah, he justified it. I do it everywhere. Mr. Novad's like, not in Laurel.
I said, this track is not designed to drive on. We can't do it all over the place. I said, well, not here.
Yeah. And last thing, the help tickets, we had 62. Our response time and close times, way excuse me, way above the industry standards. So, any questions?
Real quick before I forget, it was awesome to see Mrs. Columbus, Mr. Swerbley with the elementary teachers and PTO members at the Shenango McDonald's. What was it, last week or something? Pretty cool. Everybody was there volunteering their time and raising money for the kids. So it was busy. I'm assuming they made some good money. So
Yeah, so last year we broke 3 records. We sold the most out of any schools last year. This year we broke the diner record. So they did like over $2,300 in sales in 2 hours. And we get a portion of that. And they also, so like all the pies and cookies we sell, we get straight profit from. So it's a nice fundraiser and it's fun. The difference between last year and this year was last year, a lot of people came and left. I think because of the weather this year, a lot of people came and stayed. So there wasn't room. People were getting their food and going and eating in their cars. But it was a nice time to see everybody and be there. And kids got a kick out of us giving them their food.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Gardner.
Finished up the quarterly reports for the quarter ending March 31st, payroll and several programs and a couple of grants that we are required quarterly grants. One of them is the PC grant that is wrapping up in June. That's the one that we need items. That one's also renewed. Haven't gotten word yet on whether those
through, but, two of the grants were, they were ours to have. We just have to go through the process. And then one was competitive, and that was all physical safety as well. So waiting here on those. We have line item on the agenda for our supply bid awards for this year, for next year. We bid out art supplies, custodial supplies, science supplies, BOAG, and tech ed supplies, and all of those. I have full confidence that we should have all of them, maybe but art, for next week. So there's blanks on there. We have them all back. The teachers are going through them now, so. Choose the correct. I don't know if they have alternates that they said if I'm not. We did get our health insurance rates for next year. We have a sizable increase, which is directly tied to our experience. We're members of the Midwest Health Consortium, which is 18 schools. I can't mention that before, but everybody's own experience, which means the claims that are your employees, is what drives our increase. So, the last 2 years combined were less than what was those rates are also tonight. Been working on the budget. I have nearly everything back from everybody. Insurance rates, which we'll get in May, for our liability, property insurance, car insurance, vehicle insurance, bus insurance, music bids back, and a couple other things. So in May, at the work session, proposed the first step, which is proposed preliminary, proposed final budget, which has to be approved in May, on display for the public for 30 days, and then we will approve the final budget in June. So that's the timeline for the budget process. We'll go into much more depth. If you have any questions about what I'm working on, leave that. And then a couple updates for the agenda tonight. There is a line item under personnel that's just our normal professional development line. There are no seminars or anything listed under there for tonight. I left it on there just in case something would come up. And there is going to be an addition for next week. There's doing on this Seton Hill College, which is one of our dual enrollment contracts. We received it.
Yeah, this afternoon. Yeah.
So we'll add that for. Question?
Before we go on, I just want to add one quick extension to her report. And it would be appropriate since you're mentioning increases in healthcare. That we're early into a new contract, but there is a sunset clause on retiree healthcare. Currently, right now, within the teacher's contract, the retiree, which would be the teacher, and their spouse get that until 8 years or until Medicare eligible. If people are not covered, they cannot drive up your experience. There are different ways that people are solving this, but again, I just think it's appropriate not only to say let people know over this contract that is negotiable, totally negotiable for next time. And that is an area where the district may want to protect itself, its future increase relative to retirement incentive and healthcare of the retiree and or stuff. That's all, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Rich? Information reports, huh? Do we have anything from both from the note? Item 5, comments, questions from floor relative to agenda items. Item 6, we will have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th, 2024 moving to the board. Item A, the treasurer's report. Any questions on item A? Item B, the investment report. Item 8, approval of bill listings. Item B, list of food service fund bills. And all this stuff should be, you should get every month if you're really bored. It's kind of interesting sometimes just to go through there and see what plus. Item 9, board action items, personnel. Item 8, retirements. Mrs. Dawn Scurbetz, high school business ed, effective February 18th, 2025. Miss Jean Ann Dean, elementary librarian, effective at the end of the 2023 school year. We'll skip the next one. Mr. Novat, director of buildings and grounds, effective 13th, 2025. Retirement of Mr. Rogers, elementary custodian, November 13th, 2024. Miss Diane Frampton, bus driver, effective April 17th, 2024. And Miss Elizabeth Burke, assistant cheer coach, effective March 14th, 2024. There's a lot of experienced people there. So, item B is, and also we will be discussing these positions at next month's budget meeting. Is the, replacement or whatever we do. Item B, FMLA, disability leave of absence, Mrs. Kelly Holstrom, May 7th, 2024 through May 31st, 2024. Item C, bus monitor, Regina Manos as a bus monitor, effective April 2nd, 2024 to rate of $53.75 a day. Any questions on item C? Item D, professional development workshops. This is the one that there is no listings on this. Item E, additions to the volunteer and non-instructional substitute listing for the 23-24 school year. You should also have that. Item 10, board action items. Policy adoption, second reading. That's policy 903, public comment. That's the one we had the first reading last month. This is the second reading. Item B, policy first reading. I'm not going to read all those, but I looked them over last night, and it all looks like they have to do with federal money. They're kind of dry. It's just,
and there aren't any changes to these, but when we would have come monitor in
Title next year.
in Title 1.
So they'll want to see that we reviewed and approved these recently.
any questions? Item C, special education plan. Mrs. Bell talked about that in her report. Spring athletics. Grant approval for coaches and students, finalists and or team in baseball, softball, and track and field to participate in the 2024 WPIL championship final should they qualify. And we're doing this a little early, but it's nice to get it done that way. Item E, Midwestern Health Combined Medical Trust Rates. With Jennifer. Any questions on item E? Item F is a Porterville Christian Transportation Committee or agreement. $142 per day. Last year was $138 plus an excessive fuel rider cap of 50% on $6 again. Even adjusting diesel fuel price increase greater than $6 a gallon. Rural School District will be reimbursed PSC for 50% of that. Any questions? Item F. Item G, is the award of food supplies. We will have those spaces filled in next Wednesday. Item H, field trips, student activity trips. Item 1 is Miss Elizabeth Arch and 15 Spanish, 3, 4, and 5 students to Pittsburgh Science Center and Cafe for Titanic exhibition. This trip replaces the earlier one to the Gateway Clipper, and Miss Lori Heights and Miss Klingerman to William Smith to 40 art and family consumer science students to Phillips Conservatory and the Strip District to get in control and art experience on April 9th, 2024, cost of transportation for students and Miss Heights and Miss Combs. Questions on item H? Item 11, being business. Any questions or comments from the board? After we adjourn, I would like to have just a short executive session. Stay here. It's a personal issue. Okay, with that, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.